There comes a time in life when your heart whispers, enough. Enough of overthinking, enough of chasing, enough of holding on to what's breaking you. That moment, that quiet surrender, is when you begin to understand the truth. Peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from letting go and trusting God with what you cannot change. This video is not just another motivational message. It's a divine reminder, a spiritual awakening for your soul. Because many of us are walking through life, carrying burdens that were never meant for us. We cling to people God has already released. We replay moments He's already forgiven. And we fight battles that were never ours to fight. But when you finally say, "Lord, I give it to you," something shifts in the atmosphere. The weight you've been carrying begins to lift. Your heart begins to breathe again. And that inner storm that once felt endless begins to calm. So, in this video, we're going to talk about peace, not the kind the world gives, but the kind God plants deep inside your spirit. A peace that passes understanding, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a peace that blooms in the middle of chaos. If this message reaches your heart today, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this channel, because this isn't just content, it's a message sent to your soul at the right time. Turn on notifications, and let every word that follows remind you of this truth. When you finally let go, when you stop fighting what God has already finished, everything changes. Chapter 1. The Power of Surrender. There's a strength that is born only when you surrender, not the surrender that means defeat, but the surrender that means faith. You see, the world teaches us to hold on, to fight, to chase, to never let go. But the Spirit of God whispers something different. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." That's not a call to give up. It's an invitation to trust. Because the moment you stop trying to control every outcome, you make space for divine intervention. Most people spend their whole lives wrestling with what they cannot change. They replay old conversations, cling to the what-ifs, and try to rewrite chapters that God has already closed. And in doing so, they lose the very peace they're praying for. But surrender, true surrender, is the moment you look up and say, "God, I don't understand it, but I trust you." That's when heaven begins to move. Because peace doesn't come from knowing the plan. Peace comes from knowing the planner. When you surrender, you step out of your own strength and into God's. And suddenly, the things that used to shake you, the things that used to keep you awake at night, no longer have the same power over you. Because now, you've placed them in God's hands. And there's no safer place than that. You begin to realize that the pain you resisted was actually the process that refined you. You see that the closed door you cried over was God's protection, not rejection. And you start to see peace not as a feeling, but as a decision. The decision to stop carrying what God already told you to lay down. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." That means peace doesn't depend on your situation. It depends on your surrender. So if your soul feels heavy, if your mind feels restless, if your heart feels broken, then maybe it's time to stop fighting and start surrendering. Because when you finally let go, you make room for God to do what only He can do. You stop trying to control life and start allowing life to flow through the hands of the Creator. And in that surrender, you find peace. Chapter 2. Practice. Discipline. Over motivation. Every dream you've ever had depends on one thing. Not talent, not luck, not opportunity, but discipline. Motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going when motivation disappears. And believe me, it will disappear. Motivation is a feeling. It rises and falls with your emotions. But discipline is a decision. It stands firm even when you don't feel like moving. The people who change their lives, the ones who rise above excuses, are not always motivated. They are committed. There's a story about a young man who once visited the great philosopher Socrates to ask for the secret to success. He said, "Master, I want to be wise and successful like you." "Tell me what I must do." Socrates looked at him quietly and said, "Follow me." He led the young man to a nearby river. Without warning, Socrates grabbed him by the shoulders and pushed him underwater. The man struggled and fought for air. Seconds turned to panic. Finally, Socrates pulled him up. Gasping, the young man cried, "What are you doing? You tried to drown me." Socrates looked into his eyes and said, "When you desire success as much as you wanted to breathe, then you will have it." That moment changed everything, because discipline is exactly that. Doing what must be done, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one's watching, even when your feelings scream, "No." You see, the world is full of people who start strong and stop halfway. They rely on motivation, but motivation fades when life gets hard. Discipline doesn't fade. It grows stronger. Every time you keep your promise to yourself, waking up early, staying focused, saying no to distractions, you're building a stronger mind. You're teaching yourself that you can be trusted. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's waking up and doing the work, especially on the days you don't feel like it. That's how character is built. That's how peace is earned. That's how success is created. One disciplined decision at a time. Ask yourself every night, did I honor my goals today? If not, try again tomorrow, because every day gives you another chance to strengthen your discipline. Remember this, motivation may open the door, but discipline keeps you walking through it. And if you stay faithful to the process, you will see results you never imagined possible. Now that you've learned the power of discipline, let's move to the third habit, a habit that shapes your inner peace and mental clarity. It's not about what you do, it's about what you allow into your mind. Chapter 3. When you release, you rise. There's something holy about release, something powerful about letting go of what once held you down. The pain, the disappointment, the guilt, the fear. Because every time you release, you rise a little higher. You see, release is not about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself from what was never meant to define you. It's about saying, yes, it happened, but it no longer controls me. It's the decision to stop living in the past and start walking in the promise of the present. When you release, you stop giving yesterday permission to rob you of your peace today. You stop chasing closure that only God can give. And you stop fighting to understand things that were meant to shape you, not break you. Because every loss has a lesson. Every ending has an awakening. Every broken piece is part of the masterpiece God is creating in you. Sometimes we hold on because we're afraid of the unknown, afraid to start over, afraid to admit that the season we prayed for is now over. But what if the thing you're afraid to release is the very thing holding you back from rising? God cannot fill your hands if they're already full of what He's asking you to let go of. You cannot soar with the same weight you cried to be free from. And you cannot move forward if you're still staring at the door that closed. It's time to rise. Release the people who walked away, not with bitterness, but with blessing. Release the pain that still echoes in your heart, not by forgetting, but by forgiving. Release the versions of yourself that no longer fit the person you are becoming. Because when you release, something begins to shift. you start to feel lighter. Your heart starts to open, and your spirit begins to rise. You rise into a peace that's not dependent on people. You rise into a strength that doesn't come from this world. You rise into the version of you that God always saw, even when you were still buried under your pain. Isaiah 40:31 says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." That's what happens when you release. You rise. Like the eagle, you soar above the storms that once terrified you. You no longer fight the wind. You use it to lift you higher. You no longer fear the change. You become the change. Because every release is a resurrection. Every time you let go of what's not meant for you, God breathes new life into what is. He gives you new dreams, new strength, new direction. And one day, you'll look back and realize everything you lost was never truly loss. It was a divine exchange. God took what was heavy and gave you wings. He took your pain and gave you purpose. He took your tears and turned them into testimony. So don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to rise, because every time you release, you rise closer to who you were created to be. You rise stronger, you rise wiser, you rise freer, and you rise in peace. So today, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and whisper these words. Lord, I release what no longer serves my soul. Lift me, heal me, raise me into the peace you've prepared for me. Because the moment you release, you rise. Chapter 4. The stillness that follows. There is a sacred silence that comes after you let go. It's not empty. It's not lonely. It's holy. It's that stillness that follows every storm. When the winds finally calm, the waves rest, and for the first time in a long time, you can hear your own heart again. That stillness, that peace is God's whisper. It's His way of saying, "You see, I was with you all along." You start to notice the little things again. The beauty in the morning light, the warmth in a stranger's smile, the softness in your own breath. And you realize that life didn't get easier. You just got lighter. Because peace doesn't mean your problems disappeared. It means your spirit finally stopped fighting battles that weren't yours to fight. The stillness that follows letting go is the reward of trust. It's the moment when your heart finally aligns with heaven's rhythm. You stop asking why, and you start saying, "Thank you. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for the strength that pain gave me. Thank you for closing the doors that weren't meant for me. Thank you for the peace that silence brings." In the stillness, you realize something sacred, that peace isn't found in noise, it's found in presence. The presence of God, the presence of gratitude, the presence of being right here, right now, with nothing missing, nothing broken, just peace. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." It doesn't say struggle and no, or worry and no. It says, "Be still." Because in stillness, faith grows. In stillness, God speaks. And in stillness, your soul finally rests. The world will try to pull you back into noise, back into chaos, competition, comparison. But when you've tasted the stillness of peace, you no longer crave the noise of distraction. You begin to protect your peace like it's the most valuable treasure you own, because it is. And it's in that stillness that you start to see the new version of yourself emerging. Calmer, wiser, stronger, unbothered by things that once shook your spirit. Not because you stopped caring, but because you've learned that nothing is worth losing your peace over. This stillness, it's the sound of alignment, the sound of your heart beating in harmony with God's will, the sound of divine order returning to your life. You feel safe again, not because life is perfect, but because you finally know who holds it all together. And that's when everything changes. The stillness becomes your sanctuary. Your quiet time becomes your power. You no longer chase peace. You carry it. Because peace isn't a place you go. It's a presence you live in. It's walking through life, knowing that no matter what happens, God's got you. And nothing, no person, no circumstance, no setback can take that peace away from you. So today, find your stillness. Turn down the noise of the world and tune in to the whisper of God. Because peace was never missing. It was simply waiting for you to be still enough to feel it.